So August 11th was the release of Obsidian Flames, Pokemon's last main series set. Well, not technically last main series set, but Pokemon's second to last main series set. Then on September 25th was the release of Scarlet and Violet 151. And then November 4th, so 6 days ago, November 3rd, 6 days ago from when I'm recording this video, that was the release of Paradox Rift. So in less than 3 months, from August 11th to November 3rd, we have had 3 set releases for Pokemon. Now, 2 have been main series sets, and 1 being a specialty set, which isn't going to be quite as big as the main series set, but 3 set releases in the last less than 3 months, which is it's absolutely insane to think about how many cards, new artworks have come out, new products have come out over the past few months. Now, the ancillary products, those collection boxes and things like that, those have slowed down a little bit, but of course they're going to slow down when you have all of these other products coming out that Pokemon kind of needs to feed into. And they need to have these binder collections for 151 and ultra premium collections, and then you've got 3-pack blisters and single pack blisters and all these other things. There's been so much Pokemon product that has basically been pushed out over the past 3 months. It's insane to think about. And because of this, the market on these, it's all over the place. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Paradox Rift. 1 week after release day, prices have been moving up and down a little bit. Some cards are doing extremely well, some cards not doing very well. Scarlet and Violet 151 is what we're going to focus on in today's video, because we haven't looked at this pricing in about a month, and it's very interesting. I wanted to wait another month after release because I was like, these prices, they're pretty much they keep going up, and trying to understand, like, the demand behind Scarlet and Violet 151 is it's crazy. Like, there's a lot of people who are very into Scarlet and Violet 151. They're only collecting Scarlet and Violet 151 right now. There's a lot of new people coming into the game because of Scarlet and Violet 151, but the pull rates also being somewhat of a surprise, I think, is also impacting the price of singles quite a bit. So there's a lot of important factors when it comes into when you should kind of pull the trigger on buying singles to kind of shore up your collection, and ultimately the decision lies within you. That's the decision that you need to make. Personally, I wouldn't go nuts right now. I think that with more product coming out, and I have been told more product is going to come out, so we've had a reprint of the ultra premium collections, or a restock of the ultra premium collections, a decent sized wave. You can still buy those for fairly cheap, well under MSRP, but there is going to be more product coming out. Now, I don't know exactly what product is going to come out. My assumption, my gut is telling me that it's going to be more Elite Trainer boxes. I don't know why they wouldn't do a ton more booster bundles, but the important thing to remember, and we touched on this theory before, is pay attention to big box stores, pay attention to retailers. Usually I'm going to say, hey, support your local LGS, and I do think you should support your local LGS as long as their pricing is competitive, and as long as they're keeping things fair and they're treating you right. However, I do think Pokemon is kind of catering a lot more towards big box retailers currently, just because of everything that went on involving scalping and involving things like that. So I do think Pokemon is kind of feeding into a lot of these big box retailers just because their spend is going to be so much higher. The costs control is going to be a lot easier for Pokemon. I just think the distribution channel works out better for Pokemon. I think they've made that pretty clear. But I think that if you continue to pay attention to big box stores, I know Best Buy had booster bundles on their website recently that a lot of people were able to take advantage of, especially as we move into Black Friday. Now, I don't know if Scarlet and Violet 151 is really going to be a part of Black Friday or not. It'll be interesting to see as we move forward. But these price changes all over the place, and a lot of products kind of going up. I'm going to stop rambling so you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. But we're going to kind of go through the list here, and we've got it separated into 3 different pricing. So or 4 different prices. Technically, we're only going to pay attention to the market price on the first column there, the one with the pictures, and then the last column way on the end, because that's the most recent price changes. The problem is that my big mug is in the way. So I'm going to turn off my face so you can actually see. Oh, Fanny, you're such a dummy. Okay, so we're going to start out with Charizard EX, the special illustration. I actually really do like this artwork. I know it's not everybody's favorite, and that's fine. I mean, your opinion is totally valid. You can think what you want. I do like this artwork. I think it looks really cool. I like it better than the ones in Obsidian Flames. But you can see the market price on release day, $125.98. So these prices on the left-hand side with the pictures are just screenshots that I took off of TCG Player on release day. I like to track how the prices change, the ebbs and flows. Pokemon's very cyclical. The difference is with 150 151 being a specialty set and a set that drives a lot more attention because demand is there, the fact that FOMO kind of buys in and things like that, you're not seeing the price changes that we're typically used to seeing when a new set releases. So the first column is about a week after release day. You can see Charizard dropping about 4% down to 120.45. The second column is 2 weeks later, so dropping down to 117.80. So continue to trend downward just very, very slowly. And now the third column is data that I just took, so a month and a half after release, so another full month after that second column right there. And you can see Charizard starting to climb back up, starting to creep back up a little bit. So it's sitting at 118.56. It's been relatively flat really since release. You can see the market price at 125.98 on release day. It's gone down a little bit, but for the most part, it's been very, very flat, sitting at 118.56 currently, so up less than 1% from where it was about a month ago. But even that says a lot about the demand of Scarlet and Violet 151 because it's been relatively flat. We haven't seen these double-digit price drops in the 40, 50, 60% on a lot of these cards. If you look at the Erica's Invitation special illustration rare, that one's a little bit different. So this one did get hit a little bit hard, especially opening day and then moving forward. It's not the most competitive card in the world, so it doesn't have as much success as Iono, but it was the chase card of the Pokemon 151 set for a lot of different people. You can see because of that, it started out relatively high with that market price of 77.06, dropped a week later on release day, or a week after release, down to that 57.85. So it lost about 25%, continued to go down, and now it's still moving in the downward direction, sitting at $30.92. So it's dropped an additional 21.08% over the last month. If we look at the Zapdos EX, doing things a little bit differently. Now it has gone down a little bit again. It's dropped almost 8% over the past month. It's sitting at $42.58. But if you look at where it started from, so $57.94, dropped about 20%. Then it stayed relatively flat. Now it's dropped another 8%. It has stayed relatively flat over the last month. So that release day price point didn't stick quite as well as what it did for the Charizard EX. But after that, a week after that, the price point that was kind of set at that $46.64 mark stayed relatively flat since then. It's dropped about 7% since then. The Erica's Invitation Full Art has actually gone up, and this is where we really start seeing some of those lesser rarity cards, the lesser chase cards that a lot of people weren't necessarily going nuts for right on release. Those have started to really climb up. So the Erica's Invitation Full Art, which started out at about $53.79 on release day, dropped a decent chunk, 57.04% within its first week, which is really what we're used to seeing for a lot of new set releases. It's no surprise singles drop as more product gets opened, duplicates get sold, triplicates get sold, and you have these giant price drops that happen. That's why it's a good idea to wait to buy singles. Don't do it necessarily right when a set releases. Take your time. But part of the problem is you have 3 set releases in 3 months. So it's like, well, how much time do you want to wait? Scarlet and Violet 151 might be one of those sets that you kind of open up a little bit for fun over the course of several months and then come back to finish buy up singles and things like that as the prices kind of diminish. But it's all going to be up to your collecting budget and what you're allocating yourself to spend. 53.79 dropped 57%, then dropped an additional 40%. Now it's starting to tick back upward. So it's moved up about 9%, 8.73% over the past month. It's sitting at $14.32 currently. The Mew EX, this one surprised me a little bit because all the other Mew EXs that we look at are going to see substantial drops, significant drops. And part of that is because Mew is a very playable card, but it's readily available in many different rarities because of the UPC promo, because of the regular, because of the gold card. It is readily available. So a lot of competitive players, this isn't going to impact the market a whole lot because they do have availability in so many different outlets, especially with the UPCs getting that additional wave, that giant restock that really kind of drove down the price of Mews, which is great for the competitive game, giving players the opportunity to buy cards at discounted prices or at cheaper prices than maybe what they're used to, especially during like the Shaman and the Tapu Lele days or even the Uxie days from way back when. $51.89 is where this started out at. It dropped 53% very quickly within its first week, then dropped an additional 9.5% after that. Now over the past month, it's been pretty flat, gone up just over a percentage point to $22.21. The Venusaur EX Special Illustration Rare has also ticked up about 7% over the past month. It went from $46.43 on release day down to $42.27 a week after release. A couple weeks later, it dropped down to $40.83, so only about a 3% drop there. Now it's jumped back up about 7%, so just higher than where it was a week after release, been relatively flat over the past month. The Blastoise EX Special Illustration Rare has finally seen a bit of a drop. It started out at $43.24, jumped up 12.5% within its first week, and then a couple weeks later, it jumped up another 13%. Now it's backed off a little bit. It's dropped about 6%, still above $50, sitting at $51.62, and still decently above above where it was on release day, but definitely heading in that downward direction. The Charizard EX full art, the outlines, the full arts, really cool looking cards for a lot of people. And because of that, definitely moving up a little bit in price. You can see about a 17% drop within its first week from 35.31 down to 29.17. Stayed really flat over the next couple weeks. But now over the last month, it's jumped up to where it was, a little bit higher than where it was a week after release, sitting at $31.22. So it's gained about 8% over the past month. Here's that hyper rare, that gold Mew that we were talking about. Double digit dips pretty much all the time. $34.20 is where it started out at. Dropped 26% within its first week, then dropped another 35% 2 weeks later, and now it's dropped another 35% a month after that. This hyper rare can be had for $10.50 right now, which is a very affordable price for a cool looking card. Charmander, the illustration rare, is a very interesting one. This one continues to climb. You can see it started out at $28.42, which is relatively high for an illustration rare. Magikarp, obviously from Paldea Evolved, really the only one that's quite a bit above that, but this one up 29.66% within its first week. It did drop about 22% 2 weeks after that, but now it's pretty much gained all of that back. So it's sitting at $35.78 after experiencing about 24.75% growth. So now it's very close to where it was a week after release, sitting at $35.78 currently. The Ivysaur, so the stage 1 of the Bulbasaur Venusaur line, this one dropped from $27.24 on release day all the way down a week later, 51.51%. It dropped down to $13.21. It got hammered pretty hard, but it did recover a decent chunk of that, jumping up 43% to $18.90 2 weeks later. But now it's lost a decent chunk back, so now it's down another 5.5% over the past month. It's sitting at $17.87, so still well below where it was on release day. Alakazam EX is one of those cards that it did jump up quite a bit over opening week. This could be had on release day in the morning for $26.72. It jumped up about 65% in that first week, up to $44.14, and then it did lose a little bit, about 15%. It dropped over the next couple weeks, but now it stayed relatively flat. It's actually up about 1 percentage point, up to $37.90. So still well above where it was on release day. Bill's Transfer, this one started out at $26.45. As expected, this one dropped quite a bit, 80.79%. That's a huge drop. We saw a lot of those numbers during the Battle Styles release. Dropped 80.79% all the way down to $5.08, and now it's been pretty flat since then. It did jump up about 12% over the next couple weeks, and now it's jumped up another 6% after that, but in reality it's only up about $1 over the past month, sitting at $6.03. The Pikachu has been relatively flat since release as well. This one started out at $25.51 on release day, dropped 28% down to $18.34, then climbed almost 21% to $22.18. Now it's dropped only a percentage point. It's been relatively flat over the past month, $21.95, so still higher than what it was a week after release, but lower than what it was on release day. The Charizard EX regular art, this one has dropped quite a bit as more and more packs get open. Regular arts obviously a little bit easier to pull. This one started out very high at $22.69, dropped 65.5% right out of the gates. Now it's been relatively flat ever since then. It's dropped 16%, which, I mean, that is a significant drop, but dollar-wise not too substantial. Dropped 65% opening week, then dropped another 16% after that, 2 weeks after that, and now it's dropped another 16% over the past month, down to $5.42, but only a couple bucks over the past month. Golem EX, the full art, this one has been climbing quite a bit. This one started out at $12.82 on release. It dropped 62.5%, so a decent drop that opening week, down to $4.81, but then started climbing after that. And over the past month, it's seen some really substantial growth. It's jumped up over 63% over the past month, sitting at $9.46, so still a little bit below release day pricing, but definitely climbing and climbing, getting closer and closer to that. The Caterpie illustration rare, this one started out at $12.22. This one has been climbing as well over the past month. It dropped 54% opening weekend, down to $5.61 a week after release. Then it climbed up 18% over the next 2 weeks, and now over the past month, it's added an additional 13%, so it's sitting at $7.49 currently. The full art Wigglytuff dropped 50% opening week from $11.30 down to $5.65, jumped up 37% over the next 2 weeks, and now it's climbed another 14.5% over the past month, sitting at $8.84 currently. Switch, the secret rare, this one has actually started heading in the right direction after getting hit very, very hard. You can see it dropped 42.5%. Opening week down to $7.54, and then dropped another 34% over the next 2 weeks after that, down to $4.98. So a gold card that's semi-playable. There are a lot of copies out there already, a lot of different variants as far as rarity goes. $4.98 for a gold card, not a bad price. It has jumped up almost 22%. It's sitting at $6.07 currently. The Squirtle illustration rare, this one went up quite a bit opening week because it did have a surprisingly low number on release day compared to the other starters. $12.95. It jumped up 58% to $20.45, and then stayed very flat for the next couple weeks at $20.46. Now it has ticked up a little bit. It's jumped up almost 14%, sitting at $23.29 currently. The Blastoise EX, much like what we saw with the Charizard EX, regular arts it's just been hammered over the past month, really, since release. Dropped from $12.89 down to $6.89, so 46.5% of a drop opening week. A couple weeks later, it dropped another 31%, and now it's dropped another 46.5% over the past month, down to that $2.52 price point, so just barely above a bulk EX now. But it's full art variant doing much, much better. You can see $18.43 is where this started out on release day. It's actually selling for higher than that right now, despite the fact that it had a 21.65% drop within its first week, down to $14.44. Jumped up about 12% after that. Now it's climbed an additional 28.5%, sitting at $20.79 currently. Here's that other Mew EX that we were talking about before. Started out fairly high because of its competitive playability. Went from $16.19 up to $18.17. So that first week, because of its playability, a lot of players wanted to add up on it. Jumped up to $18.17, about a 12% increase there, but then it dropped about 42% as that Ultra Premium Collection. Remember, the good thing is the Ultra Premium Collection came out 2 weeks after the release of the set, so it dropped about 42% at that point. Now it's dropped another 23.72% over the past month, down to $8.04. The secret rare or hyper rare Psychic Energy dropped 42% opening week from $15.65 down to $9.02. It's continued to fall since then. The gold energies just don't do as well as they used to now that there's so many different copies. Over the past month, it's dropped 13% to $6.60. The Zapdos EX, much like what we've seen with these other full arts, has actually climbed over the past couple weeks, still well below where it was on opening day. $19.23 is where it started, but it had a very significant drop. That opening week dropped about 52.5% down to $9.15. Climbed 12.46% over the next 2 weeks, and now it's added 15.65% more over the past month, sitting at $11.90 currently. Tangela went from $19.13, very, very high start for Tangela, dropped 77.73% that opening week, down to $4.26. So it has seen decent growth since then, but still way below where it started at. It's gained 10.5% over the past month, sitting at $7.60 currently. The Giovanni's Charisma Special Illustration Rare, this one's been dropping really since release. It's dropped an additional 15% over the past month, down to $11.87. The Charmeleon, the illustration rare, went from $21.95 opening day, dropped 32%, and now it's climbed since then, almost back to where it was on opening day. It's gained 22% back over the past month, sitting at $20.51 currently. The Wartortle also getting very close to where it was on release day when it started at $20.98. It dropped a decent percentage, 40.85% that opening week. Now it's gained 13.93% over the past month, sitting at $18.98 currently. The Venusaur EX, another one of those that's experienced some good growth over the past month. Not quite where it was on opening day when it was at $19.98, but that's because that drop was a little bit more substantial. Dropped 58.5% in the first week, down to $8.31, and now it's been climbing since then, 52% over the next couple weeks, and then over the past month, almost 25%, sitting at $15.90 currently. The Nidoking has gone down a little bit over the past month. This one started at $11.10. It dropped 35.5% opening week, down to $7.14. It did gain a little bit of that back. You can see 20% growth over the next couple weeks, but now it's dropped about 5.5% since then, sitting at $8.08 currently. The Giovanni's Charisma Full Art dropped very, very hard opening week, and it's gained a little bit of that back. You can see a 57.27% drop in its first week. Now over the past month and a half, it's gained 6.24%, but still well below where it was on release day at $6.13. Poliwhirl was at $10.81 41 cents on release day. This one's actually above where it was on release. It dropped single digits, so less than 8% in that first week to $9.95, but then started going up, climbed 16.5% in the next couple weeks, and then over the last month, it's gained another 5%, so it's sitting at $12.23 currently. That Ninetales EX, a little bit above where it was on release day, went from $10.58, dropped almost 40%, 39.41% down to $6.41, then saw some big growth, 65% over the next 2 weeks, and then an additional 8%, 8.5% over the past month, sitting at $11.51 currently. The Bulbasaur doing extremely well because it started out very, very low. It was $9.99 on release day. It jumped up 89% almost in that first week, up to $18.86, and then it's continued to grow since then. So it's gained almost 11% more over the past month, putting it at $21.45 currently. Alakazam EX, the full art, also above where it was on release day. Market price was at $9.35 at that price point. Stayed really flat in its first week, then went down very little over the next 2 weeks, and now it's gained about 32.35% over the past month, sitting at $12.07 currently. Daisy's Help, this one got hurt really hard within its first week, went from $9.10 down to $5.03, so a 44.73% drop. Gained 14.5% over the next couple weeks. Now it's gained an additional 20.62% over the next month, still below where it was on release day at $6.96. The Machoke is one of the few that has actually gone down over the past month, but it did have a very substantial gain a couple weeks after release. So this went from $9.07 down to $5, so it dropped almost 45%, then went up almost 91%, up to $9.55, basically back to its release day pricing, and then it dropped an additional 18.5% since then. So kind of in the middle of its low and high at $7.79 currently. The Venusaur EX, we won't spend any time on. It's basically getting to the point where it's almost a bulk EX. The Kangaskhan EX full art dropped 57% opening week, gained a lot of steam back, 114% growth over the next couple weeks. You can see it jumping up to $7.26, which was basically its release day pricing. Now it's gained an additional 34% over the last month, so above where it was on release day at $9.73. The Mr. Mime illustration rare basically flat from where it was on release day, despite having a 46% drop in that first week. It's gained most of that back, sitting at $7.27 currently. The Arbok is up quite a bit from where it was on release day. It was sitting at $7 and a penny, dropped 39.94%, so almost 40% of a drop in its first month, down to $4.21. Gained 70%, 70.5% after that. Now it's gone up an additional 44% over the past month to $10.36. And then we've got the Dragonair, which has just continued to climb and climb and climb really ever since release. The artwork on it is really cool. Started out at $6.34, but then went up 127% within its first week, up to $14.41. Continued to gain a little bit of ground over the next 2 weeks, up to $14.87. That was only a 3% growth. Now it's gained another 12.5% on top of that, so it's sitting at $16.73. So it's over 2 times where it was on release day, over double the price at that point. Psyduck started out at $5.54, jumped up 61.75% within its first week to that $8.96 price point. Stayed flat over the next couple weeks at $8.92. Now it's gone up an additional 28.5% since then, sitting at $11.47. So again, another card that's double where it was on release day. So very interesting price trends to kind of look at involving Scarlet and Violet 151. There is more product coming. I don't know exactly when it's coming. I don't know exactly what is coming, but I was told that there is more coming. I don't think it's going to be as big and as significant of a drop as what it was on opening day, but I do think Scarlet and Violet 151 is going to be around for quite some time. So if you're having fun opening Scarlet and Violet 151, I wouldn't ruin that for yourself. You can continue to open it, as your budget allows you to. Take time, enjoy the set. The artwork in it is really, really cool, but I wouldn't FOMO or freak out about any of these prices increasing because that's only going to cost your collection budget in the long run. I think this is a set where you can kind of take your time on, enjoy, and then buy singles in the future once these price points come down a little bit, if they come down a little bit, but that's just my assumption. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, please hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like, leave a comment on the video if you want. It goes a long way for the algorithm, so I'd really appreciate it, but ultimately I appreciate you guys just taking the time to listen to me ramble about Pokemon because I love to do it, and I love to talk about it, and I love hearing your guys' opinions. So thank you so much for everything. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, peace.